Hello and good morning, everyone, and welcome to my presentation on Giuseppe Verdi. As you just saw, my name is William Welch, and I will explain a little bit about Giuseppe Verdi and his works and who he is as a person. First things first, a little fun fact for all those who want to know Giuseppe in English means Joseph, so whoever has the word Joseph, the name Joseph out there, could also call themselves Giuseppe and Verdi could be known as Green as well. Right now, as this presentation goes on, at the beginning part, we are listening to a song from one of Verdi's operas called Nabucco. This is one of his most famous operas that he first performed in a famous opera hall in Milan called La Scala. This song that we're hearing behind us right now is called Va Pensiero, and in English it is known as Chorus of the Hebrew Slaves. Later on in this presentation, we will hear another one of his songs that help demonstrate the time period that Verdi was in, since he was living in Italy at the time, and Catholic made him very religious, and also during the Romantic period, and we will hear much of these integrated into his later works. So this song right now, Va Pensiero, Chorus of the Hebrew Slaves, helps talk about the Hebrews of Christ's time and his religious background. There have been many famous composers that have come out of the historic cobblestone streets of Italy, but Giuseppe Verdi is undoubtedly one of the most famous ones to come out of Italy itself. Born in a small town called Busseto in 1813, Verdi was born to a fairly regular family. His parents were both traders, and they wanted Giuseppe Verdi to have a really good education. So at a young age, Verdi's father would enroll him with local priests to further his education, and most importantly, to start learning music. After Verdi quickly picked up succession in his small town of Busseto, Italia, he would later apply to fulfill one of his lifetime dreams, to move to Milan and to get a scholarship and start studying music there with other musicians. Sadly, because of his different techniques of playing the piano, he was denied entrance and denied his scholarship at this certain place in Milan that he wanted to study. Being saddened, Verdi moved back to his hometown of Busseto and tried to make a name for himself again with his composition of music. He later would become il maestro di musica in his local town opera house, which is very common for Italy's cities, to have an opera house in each town. He would become this head, this maestro di musica, and would eventually make a name of himself, and his pieces that he would write and compose would eventually make it to the place that he was trying to enter in the first place. His pieces were very famous, and people loved them so much that they started being performed at La Scala. So this piece, as we're finishing it up right now, Va Pensiero, was one of Verdi's first operas that he ever wrote, and it was performed at La Scala, which is the most famous opera house in all of Italy. Upon hearing the title Chorus of the Hebrew Slaves, it would be very safe to assume that this certain piece of music in his opera, Nabucco, would be a very sad song, talking about Hebrew slaves. In my opinion, I would declare it as neither happy nor extremely sad, but somewhere in the middle. I love the beginning with the orchestra by itself, and then later on, as the choir joins and the orchestra is accompanied by the choir. This certain piece in particular, in fact, just like the piece we're about to listen to, is written like a waltz. It was written in a 3-meter tone, which is very easily danced to. That is one of the things that I notice about this song, is that as the notes that the choir sings and the orchestra plays are very conjunct, it makes it for a piece that is very easily danced to, which I found interesting as the title is Chorus of the Hebrew Slaves, but kind of adds to the Romantic period in which Giuseppe Verdi was composing. A piece that we will listen to right now is called La Donna è mobile, and it is arguably one of the most famous pieces that Giuseppe Verdi has ever written. I would say that this is probably one of the most romantic pieces too, as it explains the story of a woman. A man is talking about a particular woman that he's fallen in love with. This piece is very beautiful, and it was actually sung by a man named Luciano Pavarotti, which is one of the most famous opera singers to ever come out of Italy as well. So we will take a second and listen to this song, and I will talk more about it at the end.
La donna immobile, qual piuma al vento, muta d'argento, e di pensiero, sempre un amabile, leggiadro viso, il pianto in riso, e menzognero, la donna immobile, qual piuma al vento, muta è sempre misero chi a lei s'affida, chi le confida al cautel core.
As we're looking at right now, we understand the opera called Rigoletto, which is the opera in which this song was performed, La Donna è mobile. So, at the end of my presentation, we have just finished listening to the song La Donna è mobile. And just like the previous song, Chorus of the Hebrew Slaves, it too is written in triple meter in a waltz type form that makes it very easily danceable. I find it extremely interesting to notice the different cadenzas that are in this piece. I relate them to the song Scherzo by Haydn, where both the choir and the orchestra both fade out, or in this particular moment, the single male voice fades out with the orchestra and there's a pause before it ends on the tonality note that is our ears waiting to hear. So it's a type of scherzo form that was integrated into it. So there you have it, a little bit about the wonderful Giuseppe Verdi.